What's your take, as a newcomer to this world, on the universe of Murderbot?
Well, I was introduced to the script. The
Hmm.
pilot episode was the first thing that I read. That was all I needed to then jump over to the books, and I devoured Martha Wells's full Murderbot Diaries. I think it's a book of 7 books.
Hmm.
Uh, I fell in love with the world
Hmm.
right away. I mean, it is a very, in terms of like strong perspective,
Hmm.
to see the world through the judgment, the harsh judgment of a rogue security unit robot,
Yeah.
makes for such comedy. I think like there's also such a heaviness of when you're looking into the future, and this is like 2000 years from present day, and the
Hmm.
world is grim. And so
Hmm.
I think I might have been yeah, I expected it to be a much more dismal world. And yet the comedy, the humor, and the group of space hippies that
Hmm.
Murderbot meets,
Yes.
they are the breath of fresh air. They are outside of the corporate rim. They have a love and joy and a humanity that I guess gives me hope overall. So I get hope. I get
All right.
so much, especially what was retained after. If you imagine everything that we're about to go through
Hmm.
as a planet over the next
Hmm.
few hundred years, it's hard to imagine us coming out in a good way. But the Preservation Ox crew reminds me of what we're made of. We've been doing going through many eras that were as difficult, if not more than this one, and we keep on remembering that we're here for good. At
Yes.
the end of the day, we're here for
Yes.
more good than we are for bad, and I do believe that. Yeah, that's what the show gives me. It gives me hope.
I like that. So then, can you tell me a little bit more about your character, Professor Bardwaj, and how her blend of scientific brilliance and emotional intelligence like factors into the show?
Yeah, I think that Professor Bradraj is probably more comfortable in a lecture hall,
Hmm.
with students in a controlled environment. Uh, I kind of feel like she's out of her element. That's part of the comedy and tragedy
Hmm.
of of her situation, that she's not well equipped for what's about to go down, and then spends 10 episodes recovering from what went down. And I think that's also a really interesting study of a character when you see someone that is stretched beyond their capacity. And that was that was the greatest challenge, to track her growth, when she was like ready to go out there again and then, needed to cocoon again.
Hmm.
Um, that to me is that's my favorite kind of psychological assessment when I get into characters. She is a reminder that no matter how heady we can get, and she is a geoscientist, she's
Hmm.
much more comfortable with studying rocks
Hmm.
than you know
People
than
or robots.
than people. And yet, oh yeah, the example. But like I think, overall she has a curiosity, and that's
Hmm.
what is kind of the driving force for her. But yeah, I think she's lonely.
Hmm.
And while we also wanted to, explore that, as so many different kinds of human relationships are explored on the show. And
Hmm.
so to show somebody who is not quite found that part, I think
Yes.
academia has kind of been her biggest passion. So yeah, obviously I'd love her to find love. She needs some love.
Yeah. So, speaking of relationships, how does your character relate to the titular security unit or sec unit, Murderbot?
I think that same curiosity is
Mm.
is is there, um, but the need to connect and personalize or humanize is misdirected. I think expectations of a natural human response to the situation
Mm.
um, is unfortunately misguided, and yet she continues to want to try to, insist that there are, like, it understands consequences, it understands that is hurtful behavior, it understands, like, but like, yeah, I don't know how, like, what Murderbot has to do or how far Murderbot has to go before she realizes he's just not going, it's just not going
Yes.
to respond.
It is
And
not a human. That is true.
it is not. And for a scientist and a really smart woman, I don't know
Mhm.
why that's so hard for her to understand.
Mhm. Um, what thought went into like the character design and some of like the costumes or the look? Some like careful viewers, myself included, from the trailer have seen like certain details, maybe like certain details around the eyes or like little tattoos or something.
Mhm. So overall, there we had an amazing costume designer, Carrie Grace, who really wanted to use a color palette and resist the usual angular and kind of really harsh contrast of what we know sci-fi worlds to look at, to look like.
Mhm.
So this direction of really lush, rich, colorful habitats that then was reflected in our clothing, really artistic, creative clothing, very movable. Like, it just is the antithesis to what we're used to in outer space. And then the personal thing I added was I wanted to remember, I think in later books of Murderbot Diaries, we hear where Preservation Ox, where they came from, that they are the descendants of refugees from planet Earth like
Mhm.
2000 prior. And so I was just thinking of what are the remnants of those earlier societies that might have still like made it to this point in time. And just seeing how tattoos for thousands of years and how that has kind of been passed on in indigenous cultures, I was
Mhm.
thinking, could there be some little thing that's not so much symbolic of the image? We didn't want to get into too much cultural imagery, but
Mhm.
just something of a tattooing
Sure.
um
A little
uh
something.
tradition. And the creators were really on board with that. I was very, yeah, we I think we pitched a couple options,
Hmm.
um but the ones we landed on were subtle enough if you catch them, and
Hmm.
thank you for catching them. um but it was ode to the refugees that we all came from. That's what I wanted to do.
Nice. So, going back to like the nature of the characters, a lot of the characters, including yours, are scientists and academics working with exotic futuristic settings. This world, like I said, set hundreds, maybe thousands of years in the future. Given that, and some of the more technical dialogue in the series, what was your process for making the scientific jargon feel natural and kind of flow authentically?
That's always that's one of, I'm revealing too much, but that's the hardest part for me. um Not only that, but putting that scientific language with the apparatuses that I had to use. So there's some goggles that
Hmm.
are required for the surgery. There are instead of tools, we now wear gloves that operate, at a distance. The gloves and the goggles while saying lines out of my mouth, that did me in almost almost every time. It became comical because it was like, it's hard enough to say the words, you're going to now put me in all this stuff that I have to learn how to do that. But
Hmm.
that's the magic of television, is we make it look like it's totally natural, and she's been doing this forever.
Hmm.
But I think, people need to see those clues and those cues to know, you know uh, not doctor, but not a surgeon, but like that this is second nature to
Sure.
her, but not second nature to me. So yes, that was an
Exactly.
extra effort for sure.
That's where you get extra takes. Um,
Thank goodness. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was just it became the running joke of
yeah,
how difficult it was to maneuver that stuff.
yeah. So another question I had was, you relate to Murderbot and your character relates to Murderbot a certain way. How is it developing that relationship and working with Alexander Sarsgaard? I'm mispronouncing it. I've heard it's Sarsgaard, but whatever. Alexander, to develop the relationship between your two characters.
Well, it's the challenge is off screen. We are all very fun, quirky. We got very friendly, all of us. We got very like we just like went like that on day one, and that is not what's on screen. So it's really about and he's such a pro that is like on and off, and he also is wearing the EP hat at the same time. And so yeah, you just have to fall in line with it's not Alex. It is a robot who will be mean to you, say mean things to you. I think it's very helpful also because oftentimes the helmet is down.
Mhm.
So that's the easiest time to interact with it. When the helmet comes up and you have to deal with like friendly face, is Ali, but like that
Mhm.
was the challenging part, is that it is our the temptation to humanize it, which I think is what is so confusing for them, which is
Mhm.
why the mask isn't meant to come up. And
Mhm.
that's how what screws up everything is that it's not meant to engage with us in a sympathetic or empathetic way. It's
Mhm.
not meant to say things that don't serve a function or of an order. And yet here it is saying things that sound human, that sound actually compassionate.
Mhm.
Here it is with a face that looks like ours. I mean, his face is a very special face, but
Yes, it's a
like,
human
so
face, a very special human face.
very special face. But I think that was what was helpful because it's so different, and it makes it very confusing. And I think that was easy to play off of.
Mhm.
And sometimes we would also hear his Alex would be doing the lines
Mhm.
that he was thinking in his head.
Voiceover.
Yes,
Yes.
so that we could at least like
Stupid humans.
yes, right. So we could hear it, not play it that we're hearing in the scene, but understand that's that's what it thinks of us. And I think that also just adds another layer of how oblivious we all are to how much it dislikes us. And it's
Indeed.
confused by
Indeed. So then with that, Murderbot obviously deals with some interesting themes, consciousness, humanity. Like, how has the show and, your character changed your perspective on people's relationships to technology, say?
well, even just in all the doing the press for this show and hearing my fellow castmates and how they relate to it, I didn't realize how ready some were to have a pet robot. So that was quite shocking to me. I'm in the other realm. Like I would still like to be as like use my mind and my body for as many things as possible, or else I fear they will stop working.
Hmm.
So yeah,
You don't
I'm
want a
like
robo
good.
butler.
What's that?
You don't want a robo butler quite
No,
yet, or a
no.
security unit.
And I fight also with Google Home and with Siri regularly. So I don't know if I'm the best person to, yeah, I'm definitely not the salesperson. And you're definitely not going to see me doing a commercial for like the next level Roomba or like, I don't know, robot, server at a restaurant. That won't be me pitching
I'm gonna hold
that.
you to that. If I see you in 2 years, hey, here's the new
You
Roomba.
can call me out. You can call me out on it. Yeah. But I definitely am well aware, and I also, I have an 11-year-old son, so I'm well aware of the world that he is growing into,
Hmm.
or growing up into, and so yeah, I just feel more than ever, which I think is what the show helps us understand. It can't be all or nothing. We will lose ourselves as a people
Hmm.
if we relinquish all control over, because it's just there's subtleties,
Hmm.
it's not black and white of how we're meant to run businesses, organize society, rules of operation. It's not black and white, and only humans can appreciate
Hmm.
the gray area and all the nuances of that.
Exactly. So then let me ask you, the Murderbot fandom has been incredibly passionate. I've seen myself from like forums and whatnot, about these characters in this universe. Is there anything particular you're looking forward to as far as responses from readers as the show rolls out on Apple TV Plus?
Well, I've read a lot of I feel the support, the enthusiasm. There's some fans who I particularly like, the content that they're putting out. Obviously, I love the ones who love the show and what they've seen so far. I think though for it, I understand, and it's happened to me as a viewer when I see an adaptation of something I've read onto the screen, and I know how tightly we can hold these things to our heart. What I ask is that they understand. First of all, Martha Wells is a producer, is a consulting producer on it. She everything, she's given her thumbs up, she's given us her blessing. And I think that's really important, to have and to know that she has been cheerleading us through the whole process. What I hope the fans and the real devoted like Murderbot, champions appreciate that there is just there's it's a different medium, and so to allow the ways that we had to shift things, even Bardwaj, we're tracking things that happen over 5 books. We had to truncate that into one season. She doesn't go through all that in book one. So that just, yeah, the allowance that, Chris and Paul did such a beautiful job adapting this to the screen. And so, yeah, I don't mean to like give us some slack, but just appreciate it. It is an adaptation is an art form unto itself.
Yes.
And so much thought and care has been put into how we brought these characters to the screen. Obviously, they're going to notice we're missing a couple characters, but like ensemble cast art, they're huge. There's so many stories. There's so many people you have to stand and satisfy. So yes, we did lose 2 characters, but we still have this big, beautiful, dynamic, and diverse group of space hippies that I think satisfy, who you want the Prezox crew to be.
There you go. So here's a fun one. If
Yeah.
Professor Bardwaj were to binge watch a show, like the way Murderbot watches Sanctuary Moon, what do you think would be her favorite premium content serial?
It's definitely not the adventure stuff because she seems so uninformed about, like, it couldn't be Alive. Like it couldn't be one of those like survival by herself on an island sort of thing. I think it's probably like a David Attenborough. I think it's, or I think she would love David Suzuki. I think like a good, like a Nature of Things kind of, just examining species in the world. Hopefully, she'd end up, veering off into like the Gabor Mate world and a bit more deeper into human psychology and trauma, the world of, trauma recovery.
There you go.
I
Maybe
think she's
yeah, maybe a little ER or a pit. Um
the pit.
what
Oh my gosh, yes.
what are some, speaking of other projects, perfect.
Yeah.
What are some other projects that you may be interested in pointing out for viewers?
I'm really excited. Like as much as sci-fi was a whole new world for me, I just finished a series that we don't know when it's coming out, but it's on Crave. That's called Underbelly,
Mhm.
and it is a violent cop drama. Also a very dark world. I do cops. I do cops a lot, but like violent cop drama I haven't done. So that was new and exciting for me. Also, like, when you can be the opposing light to the darkness. I love those kind of characters. So yeah, Underbelly on Crave, and I launched my own production company. Well, with my husband last year, and our film is doing the film festival circuit, which is very exciting. And
Congrats.
so yeah, we have an upcoming screening at Imaginative Film Festival in Toronto. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Murderbot is now gonna I'm just gonna let it go into the world and do its thing,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna put on my producing and writing hat, and yeah, do like the smaller, if Murderbot is like that, this is like this. This is like this small grassroots independent filmmaking, which is
Mhm.
actually the world I come from and where my heart is.
Nice. Okay, last one. What would you like to say to everyone who are fans, supporters of you and the work you've done on our screens? Any last words?
Well, I'm sure it's yeah, I guess that I'm it's funny because I was just talking about the world I come from. Like if the ones who've been following me for a long time, for like the last
Hmm.
30 years, they've been seeing me in small, abstract, avant-garde theater, in houses of like, 25 seats. And so this is probably one of the, the bigger shows that I've been in. And I guess just to to be up for a very different thing they've seen from me. I don't get to be funny a lot. I cry a lot. I think I'm mostly known for like snotty nose face, big emotional breakdowns.
Hmm.
I still love doing that, but
Hmm.
the comedy world, the sci-fi world, it is, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised seeing me in a show like this.
Hmm.
Rocked my world. I had so much fun. And yeah, it's very different from, dark indie dramas. And so yeah, refreshing for me. I hope it's refreshing for the people who've been watching me for all this time. And I do think this show has something for everyone.